Oops, there we go. Hello, welcome to Community Matters. Getting off to a bit of a late start here, and my apologies. Welcome to Community Matters. This is your host, Becky Steinbrunner. With great apologies, I'm going to need to hook up a feature here that will allow guests to call in. So stand by. There'll be some strange noises, but bear with me. This is a busy day for me. I have had a court matter this morning that was very disturbing, and I can talk with you a little bit about that if you want to know. But it required that I take some further action after the hearing. Okay, now you're probably going to hear some things.
You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
All right, so we have now the ability to accept people who want to call in to Community Matters, and welcome to Community Matters. I am your host here, a bit frazzled from the morning's issues, but I'm hoping that at 2:10, which is in about a minute, Mr. Andy Caldwell will call in, and we may have him here. Yes, I think we have him. Excellent. So I'm going to bring in Andy Caldwell. Well, he is almost finished here, and I really want to thank you all for your patience today. All right. Hello, Andy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I arrived at the studio a bit late, and so I have not introduced you, but I just want to thank you for calling in. You have a short amount of time because you also have a radio program in your area in Santa Barbara County. So I contacted you because of something you wrote as a guest commentary in the Santa Maria News about a battery energy storage project approval in Nipomo. So with that being said, I would like to again thank you for calling, and would you please introduce yourself and then tell our listeners here in Santa Cruz County a little bit about what's going on in Santa Barbara County with battery energy storage systems.
Thank you, Becky. I'm a government watchdog. I've been doing that for 35 years for the Coalition of Labor, Agriculture, and Business in Santa Barbara County. And I have the radio show and all that. Make a long story short, what a lot of people don't know is right now California has built so much solar that more than it can use. Solar pretty much produces between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., and they got more than we could use. It destabilizes the grid. So right now at least in some times of the year, we are either selling it or paying other states to take it off our hands. And to remedy that problem, they want battery energy storage facilities. So solar primarily produces for 4 hours a day. The batteries would store 4 hours worth of power, and then that would be used when the highest demand for power occurs in the evening when people get home. So there's a state law that we share the same state assemblywoman, and she asked for a bill to, limit the ability of these battery energy storage systems to be within X number of feet or yards from sensitive receptors, et cetera. Well, our Board of Supervisors spilled the beans and said that bill will die because there's some counties, they would not have any room to have the battery energy storage facilities in their county because they're built out. Mm-hmm. And so right now, Santa Barbara County is doing a programmatic EIR for both solar and battery energy storage systems. So once they do this, people will be able to pretty much get an over-the-counter permit to build these things. And they still claim to this day that they present no hazards.
Isn't that
and
amazing?
Obviously, Moss Landing was the biggest wake-up call, but San Diego's had fires at their facilities as well. And so we think, for the most part, these things will probably operate as designed, but you never know when they're going to catch fire, A. And then B, they could be considered hazardous waste at the end of their life, and nobody's making a provision for that either. So I don't like these things. I wish the technology was perfect, but without the subsidies and mandates, I would believe this energy fiasco is going to dry up at the end of this year because there's two things. One of them is Trump's pulling out the federal credits and the subsidies and all that. And then plus the USDA is no longer going to allow these things on to convert ag property to, solar and battery. So hopefully the pressure will go off because the financial reality will hit the industry.
Boy, I'm hoping that our elected officials can at least slow down and think about, as you very well put in here, they need to ensure public safety is tantamount, as it affects sites which present the potential for toxic fires and explosions. These projects just not only affect the immediate neighborhood where the facility is located, but beyond. You hit it right on the head there, Mr. Caldwell. And what is the sentiment down in Nipomo and Santa Maria? These things are going in everywhere, and our elected officials are being very slow to adopt ordinances that regulate them. And I am sorry to hear that the sentiment is that Assemblymember Addis's AB 303 that would concretely limit these facilities being close to sensitive receptors is being considered as doomed. It should be lifted up. What do you have to say?
Here's the deal. The whole green energy, the net zero emissions, et cetera, all rests on battery and solar. There's not enough places with wind to carry our electrical demands or satisfy our electrical demands. So as you well know, the coastal California is ruled by progressive Democrats. For them to kill solar and battery energy storage, they might as well be approving oil and gas.
What about the alternate?
They're not going to give it up.
Yeah. What about the alternate battery energy storage technologies? There are some that are, as I understand, some are being put in Southern California on a commercial scale. Why do you think the officials are so married to this toxic, high-risk lithium technology?
Well, I think that this is one of those things, like they blamed Moss Landing on quote-unquote old technology. It was 5 years old, right?
Yeah.
So the technology could evolve very quickly, but they're considering us fools to believe that 5 years ago it was bad technology, but now we've perfected it.
Yes. What are you and those that you are working with in your community doing regarding this issue?
Well, in the area of Nipomo, which is actually it's on the San Luis Obispo Santa Barbara County line. So here's the other thing. For these things to really work and to pencil out, they've got to be near a substation. So they wanted to build 2 more in Nipomo next to that substation. And we think that right now that's been blocked. However, the state law, and this is where it becomes very insidious, you can't block it locally. because they have the ability to go to some state commission, and the state commission's rubber stamping everything.
Yeah, that California Energy Commission, that just completely bypasses all local jurisdiction.
Right. So even if you can think you got to kill locally, they can go there. But again, the finances are going to change because of the lack of subsidies and tax credits from the federal government. That was a lot of money. And I don't know to what degree the state could underwrite these things, but here's the deal. There's like 3 million Californians right now can't pay their utility bills, and it's worth like $2 billion.
Wow.
And so the electricity, we have the second most expensive electricity next to Hawaii. And Hawaii and California are literal energy islands in a lot of different ways. And so, the fact is we've got too much solar right now. We don't need any more. And the battery plants have to be by substations, and then they have to build their own substation to interface with the substation. And there's not that many places. Other than that, overhead lines are a minimum of $1 million per mile.
Yeah.
$1 million, and up to $11 million. And undergrounding is even worse. So it's not going to, it either won't pencil out for the developers, but it certainly won't pencil out for the utility customers.
Yeah. Yeah, I have heard that also and read that it must be, these battery energy storage systems must be next to a substation. They don't have to. It's just cheaper to build them there.
Right.
But, if we can get some wind in the sails behind Assemblymember Dawn Addis's AB 303 to really get our public officials to pay attention to the sensitive receptors. You say it very well. What blows up in Nipomo doesn't stay in Nipomo. And the article that you wrote is a marvelous article. It as we saw in Moss Landing, just across the bay from Santa Cruz County here, we saw that plume came over Santa Cruz County. We saw that it traveled over the salad bowl of the nation, the Salinas Valley. What is your agricultural contingent there saying? Are they getting involved? Because these explosions can adversely affect our agricultural interests.
Absolutely. And right now, Santa Barbara County is proposing, and get this, they're proposing a solar farm and a battery energy storage system to power the county jail, the new county jail, which is surrounded by agriculture. Oh. And I don't know how they're going to evacuate the jail in the case of the fire, but B, the farmers are certainly dreading the possibility that their land would end up being contaminated. And the other question, of course, is field workers. So yes. Nipomo, the Nipomo battery farm is next to a strawberry field, and the owners of that strawberry field live just, I don't know how many yards away from the fence line. They were not even notified the battery energy storage facility was going in. And the biggest question is, how do you evacuate, notify, and train farm workers who move from field to field? They can work in 2 or 3 different fields in the course of a day. Nobody's going to know which crew is going to be where on what day. And so it presents a nightmare to them, and then plus the jail inmates next to the Santa Maria. These people are zealots. If this was anything else other than green energy, it'd be dead on arrival.
Mm-hmm. You're right. You're absolutely right. What is your fire department doing? How active are they in this?
They did not. For the Nipomo went in, and the Santa Maria Fire Department, which is the closest fire department, even though it's across county lines, hadn't even been notified. And, of course, nobody's been trained to do this. The prevailing technology has let it burn out. And try not to let any of the other any of the other batteries get hot enough that they go up. But secondly, in Nipomo, they don't have a water source there. They have a really rinky-dink little tank And I think San Diego put 10 million gallons of water on their fire. And so there's zero plan to put them out. There's no technology because it's a chemical reaction, and they don't know how to stop a chemical reaction. And number two, you need a huge water supply to spray down and hose down the other units so they don't overheat. And again, nobody has a plan on how to bring that water to this remote facility. None of this, like I said, California has, I've been doing this, and before this I was an industrial relations manager. After Bhopal, India disaster, California came up with Prop 65, the community right to know, emergency response plans, et cetera, et cetera. They're not doing any of that for these facilities.
Yeah.
They're supposed to have it down pat on everything they're supposed to do during an emergency, and the fact is they have no plan. And get this, I've got to go here in a minute, but get this. So before this thing, the Nipomo one was up and running, while they were testing it, they noticed an anomaly. They had to fly somebody in from China to fix it. And the actual plan they have is to tell the emergency response plan they had, which was rinky-dink, said, well, in case of an emergency, firefighters should wait till an expert arrives. Is the expert going to come from China?
Oh, my.
Hopefully on a fast boat?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
They don't know what they're doing.
They
don't know what they're doing. They're blindly committed and dedicated to the green agenda. It's the same thing with windmills killing endangered species like eagles. They don't care.
Yeah. That is the sad truth.
They're sacrificing whales and eagles, and now they're sacrificing farm workers, ag land, and as you well know, you guys had an 8-mile mandatory evacuation and close to a 20-mile shelter in place. Well, here, that would affect half of Santa Maria. That would be over 50 to 60,000 people are within the 8-mile. And in Santa Barbara's got a battery energy storage system under the 101.
Oh.
And they would probably have to evacuate over 100,000 people, and the freeway would be closed. So then how do you do that?
What are they thinking?
They're not thinking at all.
Yeah.
They're blind.
Yeah.
They're blind zealots. And the progressive community has to hold the Dems accountable as city councils, board of supervisors, state legislature, and Congress for pushing this stuff on us, because we all have Democratic-controlled majorities in all government on the coastline in California, and they're the ones pushing this.
Yeah,
they've got to stop.
Yeah, they've got to stop. That's the thing, to get them to stop, because as you say, they're zealots, and they cannot see past the fervor of the climate change disaster that will kill and destroy. And these batteries are explosive hazards right in our backyards.
Absolutely.
How do we connect? How do listeners in Santa Cruz County connect with you, listen to your program, get information about what you're doing in Nipomo?
They can look up the Andy Caldwell radio show.
Okay.
And there's a website for us. It's called the Andy Caldwell. Let me look this up. It's actually the AndyCaldwellShow.com.
Okay.
The AndyCaldwellShow.com, and there's a link to the stations we're on, and then there's a contact button there as well. So I write articles and as well as do the show. And this show's daily from Monday through Friday from 3 to 5.
Wow. Thank you. Mr. Caldwell, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you've got to go to prepare for your program. I want to thank you for calling in here. What's the one thing you want to tell people here in Santa Cruz County?
They have to realize, they have to take their green virtue signaling glasses off their head.
Yeah.
If they're going to see the reality of the situation. The Monterey County supervisor said it best. I think he said something. I've been quoting him. Forgive me, I'm old and forgetful, but he said something about the fact that this technology is beyond our ability to control and the industry's ability to utilize this. Right? He said something. I've got the quotation.
Yeah.
I'll find it. I'm sure you guys have heard it, but he said it all in a nutshell. We're not ready. It's not ready for prime time.
Yeah, that's Supervisor Glenn Church. He was on our show here a little bit about a week ago, and boy, he's the only one that's really saying it like it is and trying to hold people accountable. And he has been the only, he and Dawn Addis, Assemblymember Addis, have been there with the people in Moss Landing, really being their advocates, and it's been a really interesting thing to see that the EPA has let everybody down, has failed to do their job, and the people are suffering. So we've got a lot of work to do, don't we?
Yes, we do. Thank you for your program and the opportunity to speak.
Oh, my goodness. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Andy Caldwell.
All right. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. You as well. Bye. Well, there you have it. I'm very grateful for Mr. Andy Caldwell calling in from Nipomo. And as I said a little bit at the beginning, I learned about him and his thoughts on what was going on in Nipomo with the battery energy storage by doing a search on the internet, that wonderful internet, and found that he had written an excellent guest commentary in the Santa Maria News titled "What Blows Up in Nipomo Does Not Stay in Nipomo" by Andy Caldwell. That was written February 6th, 2025, just a couple of weeks after the Moss Landing fire in the Vistra plant began. So what we have to do, people, and I want to thank you all for listening. And what we have to do is keep talking about this issue. And that is why I keep talking about this issue every week on Community Matters, because this is huge. There are 3 sites in Santa Cruz County that our supervisors or someone has identified as the spot to build a large battery energy storage system, BESS, the acronym BESS, Bravo, Echo, Sierra, Sierra, storage site. Now, one of those 3 is already in permit process, and that's the one at 90 Minto Road. If you've never been down Minto Road, take a field trip. It's off of Green Valley. You take Green Valley heading to the mountains, and there's a stoplight there and a little market on the corner that is a lovely little private-owned market that is the community hub there, Minto Road. Go all the way down to Minto Road, the very narrow little country road with homes on both sides, cars parked on both sides, and you'll get to the very large PG&E substation. Just on the other side of that substation, you'll see an apple orchard, a productive apple orchard, and that is where New Leaf Energy wants to put a 13-acre battery energy storage system called the Seahawk Energy Storage Facility. As Mr. Caldwell said, people who are right there next to this got no noticing of this project at all. The project developer is, as I said, New Leaf Energy, not connected to the local markets, but they are housed, their administrative offices are in Massachusetts. And they're here in California doing these projects. Why? Because they're lucrative. And the project application is being handled by local consultant John Swift, who used to work in the Santa Cruz County Planning Department. So he knows the ins and outs, and he's probably got friends back there too. So the project application was submitted December 17th of last year. They held one public meeting, as they were required to do before submitting the application, and no one knew about that meeting. The postcard that went out to a few people had no time of the meeting on December 12th, a busy time for a lot of people, and it was held at a Mesty school. So we have a planning department that, in my opinion, is being directed by this project and its applicants, and as Mr. Caldwell said, the fervor for green energy by local environmentalists. And they are not looking at the bigger picture of the hazards of this lithium technology. Now, granted, and Senator John Laird always points this out, what happened in Moss Landing was old technology. Well, it was a different chemistry than the chemistry that is being planned for 90 Minto Road. Lithium iron phosphate is the newer technology, instead of the heavy metal-laden nickel, magnesium, cobalt, which is what burned up and came down in the Moss Landing fire. But they still burn. They still are prone to thermal runaway. When there's a problem, they overheat and start fire and explode. And there are multiple studies showing that when they do explode, they emit more toxic gas than the nickel cobalt formulation does. And so here is this project. This will be over 300 metal storage cargo containers at the end of Minto Road, immediately next to agricultural land. It would take an apple orchard out of production, which flies in the face of our county's Measure J and resolutions to protect our agricultural land. And it would be right next to a very densely populated area, the Diamond Estates subdivision, as it is known. And a little further down on Green Valley Road is the whole very dense Amador Drive subdivision. The project would sit, and that's the direction the wind goes from the fire toward the mountains. We know that. We live by the coast. We know where the wind goes. And directly below this site is College Lake. College Lake is now a water source for a project that the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency has developed and is now operating. They used to drain College Lake and farm it as a reclamation area, but that's all gone, that's done, and they now keep the water there and treat it and then pipe it to the coast for agricultural use, injecting it into the aquifer area there to keep the areas where the big ag pumpers are from pulling in the seawater. So that's it right there. And if you look on the other side of College Lake from this battery, it's called the Seahawk Energy Storage place, you will see the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. Where do people go when there is an emergency in our county, like the CZU fire that happened 5 years ago at this very time? They went to the county fairgrounds, and they took their animals there to the county fairgrounds. Where would people go if they had to evacuate the area of Minto Road, Green Valley Road, all of those farms out there, a Mesty Road? Where would they go? because the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds would not be a safe place because of the plume that would be traveling over it if you look at the wind patterns. Now, I learned a lot about how these projects are evaluated by the California Energy Commission and also the California Public Utilities Commission and also some local law ordinance makers. They depend case by case at this time on plume models. And by plume, I mean the smoke plume. We saw what that looked like when Moss Landing was burning. It didn't just go up and stay. It traveled with the winds, and it moved around over Santa Cruz County. It moved down into Royal Oaks, Prunedale, and further into Salinas. We saw that. So these plume models that the applicants submit with their applications determine the safety level of what the developer would have to do to mitigate any damages. So if you can get a plume modeler to show that the plume would not leave the footprint of the development, then you don't have to do any mitigations, do you? You don't have to notify people because, in theory, according to the plume, they would not be affected, would they? Well, this is exactly what the Seahawk Energy developers are saying. They are saying that if, and they always use this, in the rare event there were a fire, there would be maybe one battery burn, and the plume from that would stay within the footprint of the development. How ludicrous is that? How ludicrous is that? But that is the information that our planners and eventually our Board of Supervisors will swallow. We cannot let them rubber stamp this ludicrous information. So what do? Well, we need to keep talking about this. We need to write letters to the editor. And what I want to recommend that you do is the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors voted to postpone looking at an ordinance regarding these battery projects for 1 year. 1 year. And what I want you to do is to contact your supervisor and say, no, we need to get moving on this. We need to have more public hearings at which everyone is notified, and we need to have an impartial expert panel convene that can give us some guidance on what we need to do to create an ordinance that will put, as Mr. Caldwell's excellent guest commentary in the Santa Maria News said, convince our politicians they need to act now to ensure public safety is tantamount. Public safety is tantamount. And we need to impress upon our supervisors that putting this consideration of a battery energy storage ordinance off in our county may simply drive the developer that has the permit for one in process on 90 Minto Road to go to the California Energy Commission, because they, as I understand it from a confidential source, they already have the green light from the California Energy Utility Grid Supervisors. It's called CAISO. They have their approval. if they can get their permit. Putting it off for a year will possibly make the developer go directly to the California Energy Commission, because there, as you heard Mr. Caldwell say, they will rubber stamp it. And it doesn't matter what the local people have in place. It doesn't matter what the local jurisdictions say. They can go around them. So this is a very delicate balancing act, but I don't believe, this is my opinion, I don't believe that postponing this county's action to postpone developing an ordinance regulating the battery energy storage system facilities in our county is going to be well served if it's put off for a full year. Because it will drive this developer, I think, to go quickly to get an approval, because it's all about money. It is all about money. And requiring them to sit on their hands for a year while the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors gets their act together, they're not going to do that, because time is money. So write your supervisors, write all of the board, go to their meetings on Tuesdays. You can find their meeting schedule on Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors website, and I think they've got one coming up the second Tuesday of September. Go there and speak your mind, speak your concerns, and impress upon them the importance of this issue, because they're just hiding their heads in the sand, waiting for some news from Moss Landing's investigation, waiting for perhaps New Leaf to tell them more what they want in the ordinance. And I do believe that New Leaf Energy is writing our county's ordinance. I do know that they have already made interpretations of definitions of critical terms in the ordinance, and all of this is being guided by their paid consultant, Dudek, which is huge. They're a huge environmental group with a lot of power here in Santa Cruz, and an office here in Santa Cruz too. So let's impress upon our supervisors. And here's the second thing I want you to do. I want you to look up the Santa Cruz County Commission on the Environment. That group has held 3 public workshops on this topic of battery energy storage systems. They have not been balanced at all. But at the third one on August 20th, and I believe that if you go to that website, you can listen to the recordings. At the one on the 20th, there was an excellent recommendation made by Mr. John Hassar, who was actually on my program 2 or 3 weeks ago. He is with NVIDIA, an alternate battery storage technology that is not flammable. And he called in from San Francisco. He had come in person to the second Commission on the Environment workshop in July. And he called in at the August 20th and said, your group is going to make recommendations or an overview of what you've learned from your presenters to the County Board of Supervisors. I ask that you also give them an overview of what you have heard from the public. Hooray. I cannot thank Mr. Hassar enough, and I cannot thank Commissioner John Hunt for taking that recommendation to heart and asking that Chair Chris Damhorst also make a summary of the public comment. So how are they going to do that? I ask that you write the Santa Cruz County Commission on the Environment and tell them what your thoughts are. Make your recommendations for solutions. I have learned in my time watchdogging public meetings and things is that oftentimes if you present a solution that is somewhat feasible, at least reasonable, that it can be considered. I'm not going to say it will be, but it can be considered. Proposing an alternate battery storage system to be used is a reasonable consideration. And the mantra that most of the presenters that the Commission on the Environment cherry-picked to be their speakers at their informational meetings all shot down the availability of alternate technology. But Mr. Hassar proved that all wrong. He said, no, it's there, and it's actually being installed in Southern California. If you missed that interview here on Community Matters a couple of weeks ago, I urge you to go to the SantaCruzVoice.com website and scroll down under Current Shows and click on Community Matters. You'll see all of the recordings for the interviews that have been done. And Mr. Hassar was interviewed the same day as I interviewed Dr. Michael Hogan. So listen to that interview, and you will hear where these projects of a non-flammable, non-lithium battery energy storage facility, where these are going in. And some of them are at fire stations. You know, our firefighters really ought to be jumping up and down about this, and because they are the ones that would be charged with responding to these. So we cannot ask them to go to these facilities that have been poorly planned and for which they are not trained to respond to. As Mr. Caldwell said, the plan is to just let it burn. But at what expense? I have seen the risk assessment for the Seahawk project, and it cautions that firefighters should not get within 100 feet of the facility in a fire, because in the event of a fire, because these containers would explode and the doors would become projectiles. And this doesn't even address the fact that these sites spew toxic gas. Here's what we need to suggest. Here's what we need to ask for. We need to ask that our fire officials, and I just learned that the fire marshal for this particular area of Watsonville, where 19 Minto Road project is the Santa Cruz County Fire Chief Jed Wilson. He works for CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE manages that Pajaro Valley fire station, and they are considered the first in. They have had only one tabletop training. And so here's the third thing that I think we should be doing is contacting Chief Jed Wilson at ca.fire.gov and demand that the plan for the Seahawk energy storage system, if it is permitted, would require drones to be at the fire station, to have certified drone operators trained at the fire station, and that there would be equipment on these drones to take air quality samples. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, when there's a fire, where does the smoke and the toxic gas go? It goes up. So drones and certified drone operators need to be at the fire station. There needs to be a plan. Right now, the fire agencies do not use drones. Only the sheriff and the police do. And it would be incumbent upon the availability of those drones in the event of a fire at the 90 Minto Road place, that the sheriff would have a drone available and that there would be someone there that could operate it. Well, that's a big if. And we saw what a lot of ifs fell through in the Moss Landing fire. So include that as a solution, as a requirement for the 90 Minto Road project. Think about others and contact the Board of Supervisors, the Commission on the Environment for Santa Cruz County, and Chief Jed Wilson with CAL FIRE, the Santa Cruz County Fire Marshal. If you'd like to call in, please do so. The number here is 831-265-5050. We've got a few minutes before the top of the hour, so I'd like to finish off, unless you call in, talking about a very, very important talk coming up this Sunday, August 31st. It is not sponsored by Never Again Moss Landing, but it has to do with what happened at Moss Landing. It is going to be put on by Mr. Scott Smith. He flew out on his own dime and did some sampling for dioxin and PFAS, very, very toxic things, in the area where the Moss Landing Vistra fire plume settled. And we know where that is, predominantly by the citizen science project that the Never Again Moss Landing group did, that corroborates with the scientific sampling that Professor Ivan Ielo from Moss Landing Marine Labs did. They corroborate those two studies. But no one, including the EPA, did any testing in the plume or in the soil for dioxin or PFAS contaminants. Well, Mr. Smith came out and he did. And he's going to be presenting his findings to the public this Sunday, August 31st, 1 p.m. at the Prunedale Grange. That Grange is located on Morrow Road. The address is 17890 Morrow Road in Prunedale. Now, this event is not affiliated with Never Again Moss Landing, but if you want to find more information about it, you can on the neveragainmosslanding.org website. The sponsor for this is the Keenan Law Firm. They were the group that sponsored another earlier event at the Prunedale Grange and brought in a woman, Jamie Wallace, from Ohio. And she has been my guest too. I urge you to look on my recorded programs, Community Matters programs, for my interview with Miss Jamie Wallace. She has been going through a lot in her community because of East Palestine and things, and it is a tragic pattern that we see when these types of toxic disasters happen, how poorly prepared local officials are, how poorly prepared state officials are, and how poorly they all respond to the needs of the people. So mark that on your calendar for Sunday, this coming Sunday, August 31st, 1 p.m. at the Prunedale Grange. Let me read Mr. Scott Smith's bio. 19 years ago, his life was turned upside down when his small business was wiped out in oil-contaminated floodwaters in St. Johnsville, New York. The event changed the course of his life, making it his mission to focus on solving water and other contamination problems. He frequently works on the ground with Government Accountability Project, contaminated events, supporting chemically impacted communities by investigating and finding the truth while bringing people together to help those who are affected diagnose and understand what they may have been exposed to in contamination events. Scott Smith has been to more than 75 different oil and chemical disasters in the U.S. and abroad. The locations of these real-world events have been his learning laboratory to help chemically impacted communities. He is an inventor with 25 patents for testing and remediation of water, surfaces, and air contaminated with dangerous pathogens. And he is a whistleblower, and I am hoping to, I had hoped to have him on the program. I just did not have time to connect with him this week leading up to the event, but I will make sure that he is on a program, if not next Friday, which sort of has a full calendar already, but if not next Friday, then certainly soon after. So I want to thank you for your patience here with me today. It's been a bit of a tough week for me. I am involved in legal challenge against the Soquel Creek Water District's Pure Water Soquel project that will inject treated sewage water into our pristine groundwater in the Mid-County area. And I had a big court hearing this morning that I had to really spend the week preparing for, and because it did not go well, I really was called to take some immediate action to file a document before this program. So that's why I was late, and I want to thank you for your patience. So the second hour, I'm not quite sure what we'll be talking about, but I invite you to call in. 831-265-5050. You're listening to Community Matters, and I want to thank you, the listeners, and also Satellite Workspace and Digital Media Center for hosting this wonderful space for the public that when you require a clean, quiet, very safe place to do some remote work, have a meeting, a small meeting, you can rent the space by the day, the hour, the week, whatever, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's at 325 SoCal Avenue in Santa Cruz. Come by and check it out. I think you'll be very pleased. And Welcome back to Community Matters. I'm still your host, like it or not, Becky Steinbruner, and it's really an honor to be here with you. And again, I appreciate your patience with me in the first hour, as I was a bit scrambled there. And I really want to thank the guest, Mr. Andy Caldwell, who phoned in, and I want to urge you to find his radio show. It's the andycaldwellshow.com. It's on Monday through Friday from 3 to 5. And boy, he really, I think, has his finger on the pulse of a lot of issues in California, but in Santa Maria, Nipomo, the whole Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo area, he's on it. I've read a few of his articles, and we need more common sense, good people like that. So again, Andy Caldwell is the executive director of something called COLAB, COLAB. It is a coalition of agriculture, business, and the public that knits together North and South Santa Barbara County. That's a very laudable thing. And he has a radio program on every day, Monday through Friday. So many thanks to Andy Caldwell for calling in that first hour. And if you missed it, you can listen to the recording. I'll post it on the Community Matters webpage of santacruzvoice.com by 5 o'clock today. When I leave here, I go to the public library, these wonderful places we have, the library, and I download it right away onto the website. So you can listen to it later today. I want to also, again, remind you to make sure you go to the talk that's going to be at the Prunedale Grange this Sunday, August 31st at 1 p.m., and that's going to be Mr. Scott Smith presenting the findings, preliminary findings of dioxin and PFAS and other contaminants that he paid out of his own pocket to have done in the area of the Moss Landing battery fire. He'll be presenting those initial results, and hopefully I'll get him on the show here in the near future. And I can also report to you about what I hope to learn there too. I plan to go. Just a little more on battery, lithium battery. There was an insert someone showed me that the Santa Cruz County Green Waste garbage collection put out in their newsletters. Never throw batteries in the trash. Batteries, especially lithium-ion types found in many electronics, can spark dangerous fires when improperly disposed of, including garbage or recycling trucks. Devices that use lithium-ion batteries include cell phones, laptops, tablets, e-bikes, scooters, cameras, electronic toys, electric toothbrushes, and don't forget cell phones. So what they recommend is that you contact for curbside recycling, place them along with the regular all batteries in a clear Ziploc bag, tape the terminals of 6-volt and 9-volt batteries to prevent sparking, and set the bag on top of your blue recycling cart, not inside. So lithium is a very dangerous, hazardous, explosive technology, no matter what device it is in. Feel free to call in if you like, and the number is 831-265-5050. There was an article that was in the business section of the Mercury News last week, China's new solar farm will be the world's largest. The panels will cover an area the size of Chicago. Chinese government officials last month, and this paper is dated, it was last week, Friday, August 22nd, a week ago. Chinese government officials last month showed off what they say will be the world's largest solar farm when completed high on a Tibetan plateau. It will cover 610 square kilometers, which is the size of Chicago. China has been installing solar panels far faster than anywhere else in the world, and the investment is starting to pay off. A study released Thursday found that the country's carbon emissions edged down 1% in the first 6 months of 2025 compared to a year earlier, extending a trend that began in March of 2024. The good news is China's carbon emissions may have peaked well ahead of a government target of doing so before 2030. That's a familiar target date. This county and Central Coast Community Energy have targeted 2030 to be 100% renewable energy source here. But China, the world's biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, will need to bring them down much more sharply to play its part in slowing global climate change. For China to reach its declared goal of carbon neutrality by 2060, emissions would need to fall by 3% on average over the next 35 years. China needs to get to that 3% territory as soon as possible, said a speaker from Finland, a Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air. So the thing that China is also doing, and I thought it was interesting that Andy Caldwell said that there was an anomaly, a problem in the battery energy storage facility in Nipomo in its testing phase, and they had to bring in the expert from China to fix it. Wasn't that interesting? China is also leading the battery production in the world and has shifted 50% of their battery production to sodium battery technology because the lithium batteries keep catching fire. This is predominantly a problem reported with e-scooters. So what is happening with the bigger storage farms? You have to wonder that too. This state, California, is making very slow progress on requiring the battery storage facility owners to accurately report problems, or even the condition of their batteries when they overcharge them or overextend them. That creates wear and tear on the battery, which leads to more easily having thermal runaway. The CPUC is trying to regulate that, but with no consequences if it doesn't happen. And in my opinion, that's the same problem with Senator Laird's legislative AB 2083, I think it is. There's no consequence if the developer doesn't follow the law. Well, I think that's enough about batteries today, unless you want to call in and talk more about this. What I'd like to move on to now is the another piece of legislation, and this is California Assembly Bill 470, which has to do with hardwired landline telephone service. This bill would accomplish what AT&T wanted to do last year, but was denied the ability to do so by the Public Utilities Commission, and that is to just back out of being what is termed the carrier of last resort for people, many people in the state who have no cell phone coverage, who don't want cell phones, who don't use cell phones, and rely upon the hard-wired copper landlines, especially in emergencies and power outages. I live in the mountains here in Santa Cruz County, and when the power goes out, only the people with landlines that are copper wired have telephone service. Because when the power goes out, the internet goes out. And most people's phones are now tied to the internet. And if you are not in an area that has cell phone coverage, and there are many in the state, and I think that's okay with me, but you do not have cell phone service anyways either. So how do you call 911 if you need to? You can't. You can't. That's the issue. So it's very important that we stand up and protect our landlines. And this piece of legislation, AB 470, is under consideration by the Senate committee. Let's see. I am looking at its progress. It was amended, and it looks like it may be on hold for a little bit, but this we really have to stick to. It's been presented by Assemblymember McKinnor, and I urge you to call Senator Anna Cabrillo. She is the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, where this piece of legislation seems to be stalled right now. Anna Cabrillo. And you can also look up the Senate Appropriations Committee roster. There are 6 other members of that committee, senators that are on that committee. None of them is from Santa Cruz, Monterey Bay area. The closest one would be up in the Napa Vallejo area, Fremont, Walnut Creek. But they all make these decisions for us, and so they need to hear from us. I have phoned these folks, and it's a pretty quick and easy thing to do. It'll take you at most 10 minutes. So just look it up. Call each office and tell them that you do not support AB 470 because we need our lifelines, our landlines to be kept intact. And if AT&T is allowed to just drop out, then these phones will cease to exist. So I urge you to do that. AB 470 oppose that legislation. While you're calling or writing, this is going back to the battery topic, but we talked a little bit about it with Mr. Caldwell, and that is Assemblymember Dawn Addis's AB 303. To support that, it's important that we make sure that is supported, because it is the only bill that has objective parameters for where these projects can go with reference to sensitive receptors such as schools, homes, hospitals, and sensitive environmental areas like College Lake, like Elkhorn Slough. And let me tell you, folks, Central Coast Community Energy, 3CE, is financially supporting yet another lithium BESS in Moss Landing. It's called the Clearway Project, and you need to let them know that you don't want that. You can do that best by opting out of being a 3CE customer. They don't want that, but that's the only way we're going to get their attention. Let me tell you that. I attend their meetings, their board meetings, and they are some of the most dismissive people that I have encountered in a while. So opt out of 3CE and call your Assembly and Senate elected representatives and let them know you support AB 303 because it will protect the people. It will put public safety paramount in the location of these facilities. All right. And there is another excellent bill, AB 434, by Assemblymember Carl DeMaio in Southern California, which actually puts a moratorium on new lithium battery energy storage projects until the California state fire codes are updated, which will happen. They're in the works now, and they've got some new regulations for battery energy storage safety protocol. But until those happen, we need to call our local fire chief. And depending on where you live, that could be Fire Chief Jed Wilson, who is the fire chief for Santa Cruz County Fire Department. That's all of the area of Santa Cruz County that is not in a fire district such as Felton Fire District, Central Fire District, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek, Zayante. Everything outside of that, Scotts Valley, the cities, is Santa Cruz County Fire, and it is known as County Service Area 48, which is the funding mechanism that those of us that live in those areas pay to property taxes to support Santa Cruz County Fire, and it is managed under contract by CAL FIRE. Chief Jed Wilson is a really responsive public servant. He really, in my opinion, really is interested in doing what's best for the public. And he is the fire chief for the Pajaro Valley Fire District, which is the one that is at the table regarding the 19 Minto Road battery energy storage project. So write him and write all of your elected representatives about being mindful of public safety regarding the battery ordinance, and to wait until we have our fire codes in place. But in terms of what we need evacuation plans. We need worst case scenarios, not just one battery burning, worst case scenarios. And let me tell you, Moss Landing Fire was and still is the worst case scenario. So mentioning Felton Fire Protection District, if you're interested in that, I wanted to thank our guests from last week. We had the new Felton Fire Chief, Isaac Blum, and a couple of the board members, Craig Winters and Jim Anderson, here in the studio last week, and we talked about what's going on in Felton Fire Protection District. Their board will meet next Monday. It is Labor Day, but they're going to meet anyway because they've got a lot of work to do, and they are anticipating coming up with some sort of a response to the Santa Cruz County LAFCO. LAFCO stands for Local Area Formation Commission, Agency Formation Commission. That deadline and report issued to Felton Fire Protection District to come up with a plan of what they're going to do by October 6th. Next Wednesday, the Santa Cruz County LAFCO will be meeting. If you're interested in sitting in on that, that's actually going to be in Watsonville next Wednesday at 9 a.m. in the Watsonville City Council chambers. You can join that via Zoom also. You can find that information all on Santa Cruz County LAFCO website. And their meeting is, they meet the first Wednesday of every month, most months. They've been on a couple of month hiatus. But 9 a.m. they meet there. Normally in the county government building at 701 Ocean Street in Santa Cruz, in the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors chambers. I might add that the reason they are holding their meeting next Wednesday at 9 a.m. in Watsonville City Council chambers is because the Santa Cruz County Board chambers were planned to be under remodeling and construction, and LAFCO was told they would not be available. That hasn't happened yet, so it is what it is, but the remodeling work intended to happen at the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisor chambers will be extensive and millions of dollars. So all meant to have allow a better experience in attending these meetings at the Board of Supervisor chambers. I can think of a better use for money rather than making it a better experience. Making it more glamorous and more beautiful online for our CAO to tout. Anyway, that's my opinion. LAFCO is a very interesting agency, though Mr. Joe Serrano has also been my guest here. You can listen to that interview as well, posted in the archives. And this Wednesday, he will be presenting not only a discussion about Felton Fire District, but also the Santa Cruz County Resource Conservation District, and one other agency that I can't remember right now. So, I don't think I finished my thought about the Felton Fire Protection District. Their board is going to meet Monday evening at 6 p.m. in the Felton Fire District meeting room, and I urge you to go. They really are trying to pull things together. Their volunteers are very committed, and as we heard from Chief Blum and the two directors, they are working to really pull themselves up by the bootstraps. They've got a number of volunteers now that are trained. Not all of them live in the Felton District boundaries, but they have the ability now to have quarters, living quarters. So the volunteers can actually stay there for a shift, a 12-hour shift, whatever, and even though they live in Aptos or beyond, they can still be there as a volunteer in the Felton Fire Protection District and respond. And they're getting a lot of calls. That's one thing they discussed here in the studio with us last Friday, is that the number of calls has really gone up from what it was a number of years ago. And that is because there are more people here, and there are more people visiting places like Henry Cowell Park, State Park, the Garden of Eden swimming holes, and Santa Cruz in general. It's, as we know, a beautiful place, and a lot of people are here to come enjoy it and play, and things happen. So, support your fire districts, and I urge you to listen in, attend if you can, the Felton Fire Protection District Board meeting next Monday, and that is Labor Day, next Monday at 6 p.m., and that will be up in Felton. You're listening to Community Matters. My name is Becky Steinbruner, and I am your host here for the next half hour. I hope that you will call in. I had hoped to have a guest in this second hour from the Santa Cruz County Fair. The new fair manager, the Santa Cruz County Fair, is coming up. That will be the second week of September. The new fair manager is a lady named Dory Rose Inda. She is brand new. She is an attorney, former attorney for Salud para la Gente. And I asked her to please come on and be on this second hour with us to talk with us about the Santa Cruz County Fair, because it is coming up so soon, and now is the time to start putting your entries in. Send in that paperwork for your collection, your veggie creatures, one of our family's favorites. I have a floral arrangement that I'm daydreaming about quite often when I have the mental capacity to daydream. And so I like the county fair. The manager is going to be on with us next Friday, and she felt that she is so new that she really was not prepared today to come on and talk with us about the county fair. So we will have her here next Friday, and we will also have Mr. Matt Wetstein, who is the outgoing manager or CEO of Cabrillo College. He will be our guest in person here in the second hour, and I think that's going to be a very interesting interview. We have interviewed him a couple of times on Community Matters around different things. The first time was regarding the discussion of the name change of Cabrillo College. And maybe you have some thoughts on that. If you do, feel free to call in 831-265-5050 and let us know what you think about that. It hasn't been put to bed yet. But the other thing that we talked about with Mr. Wetstein is the huge dormitory project that is moving forward, and I understand is funded on the athletic field of Lower Cabrillo College campus, and that's going to be a joint project with UCSC. 40% of the students that will be housed there will be UCSC students, and 60% will be from Cabrillo College. So that's going to be a very interesting project. So we'll get the news on that from Mr. Wetstein. And also, he's retiring. So it will be kind of an interesting interview just to find out what he's thinking, what he's learned, what he's going to do next, and what advice he has for our community in relation to Cabrillo Community College. So that'll be next Friday. The Friday after that, I'm actually leaving open because we being Santa Cruz Voice, we may be at the Santa Cruz County Fair. So I don't have any guests scheduled for that program because I'm leaving it open for the guests that we pull in off the midway from the Santa Cruz County Fair. It's always a lot of fun. And I hope you will go to the county fair. It certainly has had its share of trials and tribulations in terms of administration, and those continue. I go to those fair board meetings. Most recently, they voted to discontinue making their fair board meetings, which occur on the fourth Tuesday of every month at 1:30 p.m. They voted to discontinue having them be hybrid format, which allowed people to listen in and call in and speak. The fair board had done that out of necessity in January, February, when they hired a manager who lives in Tennessee. His name is Mr. Ken Allstott. He has kind of an interesting history in managing some large fairs and expositions in California, the Cow Palace and things like that. And they have not always gone well, but he retired and moved to Tennessee, and he's a CalPERS annuitant. Well, this is the second time that the Santa Cruz County Fair Board hired him to manage the fair when there was a sudden change in CEOs. The first time came after the California Department of Food and Agriculture released an audit finding that was so damning of then fair manager David Kegabine that the higher-ups from CDFA, California Department of Food and Agriculture, drove down from Sacramento and demanded that the board fire him. That there were 2 board members that just resigned, and Jody Bellegarde and Loretta Estrada resigned, but did not, they're still very involved at the fair, and in fact were named as award recipients, the Blue Ribbon Award recipients, the following year, which is a very prestigious volunteer award at the Santa Cruz County Fair. So after Mr. Kegabine was fired, the chairman of the board, Mr. Don Dietrich, took over and managed as best as he could, and I think he did a stellar job. He really tried to right the wrongs that had been done. He had tremendous pushback from a lot of members of the public that were friends of Dave Kegabine and believed that he had been wronged. But Don Dietrich did a great job pulling things together, and he did it as a volunteer. When it was evident that a new CEO had to be hired, the board hired Ken Allstott. He lived in Tennessee at the time, and the board paid him to fly from Tennessee to Watsonville, and they put up his hotel and meal expenses so he could be the manager. And then they finally found someone locally here by the name of Zeke Frazier, and he had never been to the fair before. He claimed he had great financial expertise, and he was hired then as the CEO of the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. And that went on. There were a lot of problems that came up. A lot of problems with the Fairgrounds Foundation, which is the money arm, and at that time was the CEO of that group was David Kegabine's mom, well, stepmom. And a lot of problems with the Ag History Management, which was managed at the time by Dave Kegabine's dad, John Kegabine. So it was kind of an interesting little triangle there, and money was always cloudy. And that audit brought forth a lot of that. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Well, Ken Allstott stepped in, and then they hired Zeke Frazier. Zeke Frazier resigned in January of this year due to health problems. He still is involved too. He did some rather nefarious things, like loaning $250,000 to the Junior Livestock Auction Group without any public discussion with the Fair Board. And that was discovered by a new board member who is just a gem. Her name is Jody Kolbach. And this lady has an eye for figures. She has an eye for details. She reads the packets and she asks questions, and she found that the fair that in September of last year, Zeke Fraser had loaned from cash of the fairgrounds $350,000 to the junior livestock auction, and it was never repaid. It was never repaid to the fair's cash funds. So she brought that up in June, and she asked that it be reimbursed, and she asked that that money be put in a higher interest yield account that would help financially support the fairgrounds. And she asked that the minutes reflected that, and she asked that it be on the agenda of the next board meeting. Well, July came, and it was not on the agenda. And when she raised the issue, along with other members of the public, why it wasn't being discussed or on the agenda, the chairman of the fair board, a lady named Rachel Wells, said, "Oh, we just didn't have time." Now that was under Ken Allstott's time, his second time. He got hired again to manage this time the fairgrounds remotely. So he got paid over $8,000 a month to sit in his comfy home in Tennessee and direct things in Watsonville for the fairgrounds. Some very bizarre things happened, such as the fair board was not notified that the fair's insurance was going to be canceled within 3 days after they had been presented with information and rejected it at their July board meeting because it wasn't quite right. They had questions, so they rejected it. And Ken Allstott, 2 days later, let Rachel Wells, the president of the board, know that the insurance for the whole fairgrounds would be canceled if they didn't accept it. Isn't that interesting? Ken Allstott. Well, there were other things too, but we hopefully have someone new that will pay attention and get things done. Her name is Dory Rose Inda. As I said, she will be our guest next Friday here on Community Matters. And we hope to learn from her what's going on with the fair, what she's excited about, who she is, and how we can work together to make sure the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds stays well maintained, properly funded, and there is transparency and accountability in all matters at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. Now, you may or may not know that the fairgrounds is actually owned by the state of California. It is known as the 14th District Agricultural Association, 14th DAA, and fairgrounds are for the most part owned by the state of California. They are overseen by the California Department of Food and Agriculture, the Division of Fairs and Expositions, and it's a rather complicated system, but one that works and has been in place for a very long time. So that's what we have in store. Another guest coming up for that week after the county fair. I have two that I think you'll find very interesting. I have spoken with you here about the Santa Cruz County Grand Jury reports and different reports that last year's grand jury did. I had the pleasure and the honor of serving on the Santa Cruz County Civil Grand Jury last year and worked on mostly 3 of the reports that were put out, but one in particular I did a lot of work on, and that's the one that I hope you will read. It's Human Trafficking in Santa Cruz County. Signs unseen, voices unheard. And it was a very difficult investigation to do. The Santa Cruz County Civil Grand Jury does civil investigations to help make government better and to better serve the needs of the people. And this particular topic was a very difficult one to do because it is so broad. Yes, there is human trafficking in Santa Cruz County, both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And we interviewed a lot of officials and spoke with a number of different people, all of whom are confidential, kept in confidence. But you can read the report, and I ask that you please do so, especially before September 19th, when my guest will be actually two leaders of the Arukah Project. They are in Santa Cruz County, a nonprofit that helps people escape and recover from being trafficked. Trafficking is similar to slavery, often very brutal, with a lot of intimidation, and there's a whole host of reasons how people get involved and succumb to it. But what is troubling most to me is that it is our youth that are the most vulnerable. And it isn't just the minorities, it isn't poor people, it is across the board, thanks to social media. So read that report, that Santa Cruz County Grand Jury report. You can go on the website, Santa Cruz County Civil Grand Jury, and look at, click on reports, and the most recent 6 reports that the grand jury released last year will come up. And I want you to read them all, but the one in preparation for September 19th, when my guest from the Arukah Project will be here. The one is Human Trafficking in Santa Cruz County. I also will, on that day, have a couple of guests from the Santa Cruz Long-Term Recovery Project. We are 5 years ago, we were all under a plume of smoke, and many people fled their homes, many people lost their homes, many people lost their livelihoods, and many people just sold and left. Some people have persisted and been able to rebuild. It has not been easy. And there's another good Santa Cruz County Grand Jury report about the permitting process that examined that too. The year before, the Civil Grand Jury put out an excellent report about the specific difficulties that those in the CZU fire area have had in getting permits to rebuild their homes. It is atrocious, and not many have been able to rebuild, but the Santa Cruz Long-Term Recovery Group will be my guest on September 19th, talking about what they do as a nonprofit, local nonprofit that helps people build their homes, help them get through the permit process, and help them reestablish their homes. You can look it up online. It's got a very interesting website, Santa Cruz Long-Term Recovery Group, and I'm really looking forward to having them be our guests here on September 19th. You're listening to Community Matters, and we've got about 10 minutes. I hope you'll call in. My name is Becky Steinbrunner, and I am honored to be your host every Friday here from 2 to 4, bringing you information about what's going on in the local community, and always welcome your calls. And if you want to be a guest here, if you are involved in a community group, say the Lions Club, Rotary, something like that, and you want to talk about projects, then please do so. I'd love to have you as my guest. You can contact me. My email is a ham radio call sign. It is KI6, T as in Tom, KICKB as in boy at yahoo.com. Again, KI6TKB at yahoo.com. That's my email, and I would be delighted to hear from you. I just mentioned some service groups. I'm a member of the Cabrillo Host Lions Club. The Lions Club is the largest international public service group in the world. It is an international group. And locally, we have 4 clubs. We have a club in Santa Cruz, Capitola, the Cabrillo Group, which is predominantly Aptos area, and Freedom. The Lions are marking their 100-year commemoration of having Helen Keller come to the Lions and ask them for the group's help to promote sight and assistance to those who are blind and low vision. And that has been a prime project for most of the Lions clubs. We have other things we do too. We have parks that we build. For example, the Cabrillo Host Lions Club built the pathway that goes around the edge of Polo Grounds County Park, put in benches along the way, and our club also built the bathrooms, the permanent flush toilet bathrooms that are there at the athletic fields, because before it was just a line of really horrible porta potties that were also very expensive. So the Cabrillo Host Lions Club raised money and built that, and now we have that there for all the families to use and park users to benefit by. There's also a concession stand there that the Cabrillo Host Lions Club does operate when there are baseball teams and soccer teams playing there. We will be there September 12th. Let's see, what's that next one? September 12th and 13th, and for the traveling baseball teams. Our club, this Cabrillo Host Lions Club, also built the Aptos Village Park Community Center in Aptos Village Park. There's a community center there. The club in the 1970s designed it, built it, and gifted it to the county parks department, and it is a wonderful place now where people can rent for events, groups can be there, and you can come there to a Lions Club meeting on the 4th Thursday of every month at 6:30 p.m. We'll feed you dinner. We have an excellent cook. Our president, J.D. Dang, is an excellent cook, and we would be happy to see you there. Our club, the Cabrillo Lions Club, is going to put on an event. It's a fundraiser, but Saturday, October 18th, in the evening, we will have a Dining in the Dark event. It will be catered by a very good local Mexican chef. And the idea is that we will all put on blindfolds and go get our dinner and take it back to the table and try to figure out what is what. It is a fundraiser to raise some money for Dr. Art Lowe, who is an amazing lion over in San Jose, who heads up a lot of the activities at the San Jose Vista Center to help take all the donated eyeglasses. The Lions collect donated eyeglasses from people, hearing aids too, and we clean them, sort them, Dr. Lowe has some equipment there, and he has a cadre of well-trained volunteers. Every Tuesday morning they get together and they figure out what the prescriptions are of all of these donated glasses and put them in a bag, mark them, and then those glasses are then distributed to people who come to our Lions Vision clinics, which are held about every 2 or 3 months. The next one is coming up in early October in Salinas. It is already full. Over 500 people have signed up for this free vision clinic, and hopefully we will have glasses there for them if they need them. So Dining in the Dark will happen at the Aptos Village Community Center Saturday, October 18th. And you can look on the Cabrillo Host Lions Club website to get more information about that. Tickets will be very affordable. And again, it is a fundraiser. And Dr. Art Lowe will be our guest speaker for the evening. So Dining in the Dark. What is it like to try to manage a meal when you have no sight? We have a Santa Cruz Vista Center here too that just had an open house. They moved to Seabright Avenue, and I encourage you to check them out as well. They really do a lot of good to help serve those who have low vision or no vision at all. I'll use my last little moment here to explain to you a little bit about why I've been so harried this week. And you may want to know about the Pure Water SoCal project. It is a reclaimed water or recycled water project, very expensive, that is almost at completion. If you are one who drives on Highway 1, you will see it off over on the ocean side as you drive under the new whale overcrossing, the pedestrian overcrossing with a whale motif. On the ocean side is a very industrial-looking facility, and that is the treatment plant for the Pure Water SoCal project. The SoCal Creek Water District is the developer of that, and I've been fighting that legally for 5.5 years since it was approved. The EIR was approved in 2019. Many of us in the community have been worried about the inability to remove many contaminants. Constituents of emerging concern is the buzzword. It's hormones, cancer, radiological things that is in the sewage water, and that's the source of this water. The water will come from Santa Cruz City Sewage Treatment Plant, be piped there with a lot of chlorine in it. My big concern is the pipe that is now attached to the Laurel Street Bridge will be pressurized and filled with this chloramine-laden effluent that does not, if it leaks, it doesn't dissipate in the air like a lot of chlorine forms do. It is toxic to all aquatic life. It's not been pressure tested. There's no way to shut it off if there is a leak. And on one side it will be that. On the other side it will be the treated water, concentrated brine of contaminants coming back from the Chanticleer treatment. I've been fighting this for a long time, and that's why I was late today. I'll tell you more